I'm Ashley. I'm a mom to 3. I have an almost 4-year-old son, Sammy, and then I have an almost 2-year-old son, Elliot, and I have an 8-week-old at home, Grayson. So my first delivery was at Winchester, so you made the right choice. It wasn't bad. I labored at home for most of the day with my son, Sammy. I was joking around with my husband. We were marathoning Lost. I ate Indian food and was like, I'm certainly going to throw this up, and like I did. And it was fine. I labored in the tub at Winchester once I went in for a while, and then they started to like push me out because they said that they didn't want first-time moms in the tub for a certain amount of time. So once they took me out, I was in so much pain, and they wanted me to lay on the bed for an hour for continuous monitoring and a bag of fluids, and I just like, you can't labor like that with contractions. So at that point I did get the epidural, and it ended up being a good thing that I did because I pushed for 4 hours with him. And he was born healthy. It was beautiful. They put him right on my chest. It was like a great moment. And so when I got pregnant with my second son, I felt like, although I didn't enjoy the fact that they made me move, I didn't have like a terrible experience. So I went back to Winchester. With my first son, for a little background, I was 6 days late. With my second son, I was 9 days late, and he was starting to like fail NSTs, but I was Labor Day weekend, I think. And they didn't have like inductions available that weekend, so we didn't induce. And I also like knew that my body would eventually go into labor, and like, I just kind of wanted to do it on my own. When I went into labor with him, the contractions were 30 seconds apart and 2 minutes long, 9 days late, and like excruciatingly painful. So I didn't labor at home at all. As soon as it started, like within 10 minutes, I was like, all right, we are off to the hospital because something is just not right here. And as soon as I got into the hospital room, they started their monitoring to check on the baby. And it was one of those situations where the second they put the monitor on my face, they were like, on my stomach, sorry, not my face. Everyone's face got very serious, and there were suddenly like 13 people in the room. So his heart rate was dipping down into the 30s and 40s, and they just said like, you can't labor like this. We're doing a C-section right now. And I felt like in that moment, there were 2 things that were really hard for me. One is, I didn't get to read the consent form. I didn't get to talk about the risks. Like, I didn't know anything about a C-section or what the recovery was like or any of that. My doula hadn't gotten there because I just got to the hospital. So, like, I called her and she was on her way, but she wasn't there yet. And also because I had a prior vaginal delivery and I didn't really think of a C-section as a possibility. Mentally, that just like wasn't on my menu of things. It wasn't something I talked about with my doula. It wasn't something I talked about with my OB. It just wasn't something I considered. So it was like pretty terrifying. And I also remember just crying while they wheeled me into the OR. And my husband was behind me and my doula was behind me, and I couldn't see them, and I felt like I was alone, and like that moment of panic and it being rushed. And I remember thinking, like, is there anything we could have done? We had tried an internal monitor instead of an external monitor, and they said it's not working. They tried to give me a bag of fluids really quickly to see if like adding some fluid might improve the situation, and it nothing changed within like we had a very short window before we had to go for the C-section because of how low his heart rate was. And then when he was born, he had some abnormal lab work. His cord gases were abnormal. He didn't have the reflexes that you expect, so like no Moro reflex. He wasn't suckling, and he wouldn't stop crying. And it was this like very high-pitched cry that they said was not normal. So I didn't get to see him. They didn't hold him up. They immediately took him to their special care nursery. The first picture that I have of him being born is literally my doula like ran after the bassinet as they were pushing it away and took a picture of him for me so that I could at least like see him. And then while I was still being repaired, the surgeon was amazing. She was sewing me back together and telling me like, you did beautiful. There's nothing else you could have done. Everything inside looks healthy. Like if you want to have another child, you can have another child. Like you don't need to be scared. You're okay. And that was great. Like she was really great. But what was not great was they made the call to take my son to Boston Children's. So I never got to meet him. He was taken away. my husband quickly joined because we wanted a parent there. So that was really stressful and really hard. They did an MRI and an AEG and an ultrasound to check his brain function because they thought he would need cooling for 72 hours. But he ended up being okay, and he is a beautiful, amazing, hilarious child now. He's wonderful, and he was 100% worth it. But I knew that I did not ever want to go through that again. And so I think like within a week of that delivery, I knew I wanted another child, so I reached out to Marissa. It's like, I had this experience, like, I just need someone to talk to me and help me feel better about it. And she was there for me emotionally. Like, before I even contracted her as a doula, she just took an hour and spoke to me and helped me feel better. And so I knew when I did get pregnant that I would reach out to her because she took time out of her life to make me feel better. And then I did get pregnant, and my first thought was, oh no, it has to come out. Like, I'd have to do this again. So I was really nervous the entire time. And I knew that I really wanted to have a VBAC because I didn't want to go through that experience again. And also my recovery wasn't great. I got an infection and like was very low mobility and had a difficult time. So I didn't want my two older kids to like not have their mom for how long they didn't have me when I had my C-section. But I also wanted to be prepared in case there was a C-section and have it not be that bad. And so Marissa kind of helped me pick a hospital that had a better C-section policy. Initially I thought like midwife group, because a midwife group like has better odds of a VBAC success, but she actually talked me through how some of the midwife groups like don't let the doula back in the C-section room, and my doula held my hand through my C-section, and that just like made such a difference. So I wanted a hospital where she could be there, so we chose Beth Israel. And as per norm, as the pregnancy progressed for me, it became a little clear that I probably was not going to have my baby before my due date, and because my last two were so late and my prior one, it was such a like scary experience. We thought possibly placental insufficiency was playing into it because of how post-term I was. So I did opt for an induction. And Marissa helped me feel good about the decision because I was like, I want to labor at home as long as possible. Like, I don't want interventions because they increase the risk of a C-section. But I ended up having like a very smooth induction. We started with a Cook's catheter. I was already contracting when I got there, but I didn't really feel the contractions. We did the Cook's catheter for, I want to say, like 10 hours. And when it came out, I was 5 centimeters and having painful contractions on my own. We got to around 6, and then they came in and said, we should rupture your waters now. The head is like well applied. And originally I thought like I didn't want to rupture my waters, but I talked to Marissa about it, and another thing I didn't want was Pitocin and like keeping the labor moving in a Pitocin-free way. And the doctor was like very sure, like, I'm going to keep my hand on his head the whole time. I promise I'm not going to let the cord prolapse. Like, he was very, and he like walked me through it, and we did that. And then I was starting to get nervous, and I'm like staring at the fetal heart rate monitor. I'm not taking my eyes off of this. And at that point I called Marissa and asked her to come in. And when she got in, I got the epidural shortly after because I felt like my anxiety was just like way too high. And I needed to rest, and I hadn't slept, and I needed to take a break. So I got the epidural, and something that was really nice about Beth Israel is they told me when you get the epidural, the baby's heart rate may dip because your blood pressure may dip. So if that happens, we're not going to panic. We're watching you. We're going to come in. And I remember like it dipped, and they came in and they were like, I promise you it's okay. It did what we expected. We're going to give you some fluids, and it's going to be okay. And then it was like extremely uneventful until I got to about 9.5 centimeters where I was unintentionally pushing. And Marissa was like, we should probably get a doctor in here because I think you're pushing. And it turned out I was, but I had like a little lip, so they had to like rotate me around for an hour to get the lip to go away. And then again, like uneventful pushing, but almost 6 hours of pushing. And something that I really liked about Beth Israel and Marissa being there too is like the nurse that we had was like letting me push in any position I wanted, even with the epidural. Like, we were squatting, I was nearly off the bed. I almost got in like a little bit of trouble for that one, but like but they like really let me do whatever I wanted. And like when I was getting a little like, am I actually making progress, the nurse gave me a glove to put on my hand so I could feel my baby's head. So I had that. I had the mirror, like, and at one point a doctor did come in and say, like, I'm going to do a C-section now. If I come back and we haven't made any progress, like, we might have to have a conversation. And I was just like, no, I'm going to keep pushing until I pass out. And then he was born. I was able to have my VBAC. It just took a little while, but I think that the choices that we made along the way, like everything from changing the hospital to being willing to get the interventions, got me there. And I always thought, like, I don't want to do interventions because they're going to make it harder for me to have my VBAC. But I think without the epidural and without the induction, I could have ended up back in the same position as with my second baby. Yeah, that's it.